Hi, PG here. It's late on a Tuesday night, Wednesday. Nope, it's Wednesday night. Oh, sorry about that. Get that off there. It's late on a Wednesday night. It's actually April the 2nd, Thursday. This is going to be an odd night. There is so much. I want to encapsulate the historic month of March. It is historical, it is biblical, it shut down the world. Now, if you'd like to follow along, this is a series of multiple blogs that happened all month long. I'm going to try and go through them quickly. I won't go through all of them to hit the highlights of the month. And where we are now for April the 2nd. And I'm going to start with like April the 2nd where we are now. And I'm going to give the ending for those who just get to the point. And we'll get right to the point. And then I will go through the month and see what actually happened this month that was so historical. I mean, they'll talk about this forever. It's like Moses parting the Red Sea or the flood, Noah's flood. That's how big it is. The title, if you want to follow me, read along, you can go to Resistance Chicks or Isaiah 58. They look different, but it's basically the same blog. And that's on Isaiah 58 ministries.blogspot.com or Resistance Chicks blogspot, Resistance Chicks then blogspot.com, and you can follow along. March 2020, I'm going to bring down in history, so it would be March 2020 is going to go down in history, or what the man said in the opening. I'm going to bring the whole thing down. And the world stopped for the month of March. It stopped. It will never be the same ever again. It was biblical. And I'm going to start it with a description here. There are 2 or 3 plans going on here, competing for each other. We got Q, it says trust the plan. It's like, which one? Then we know President Trump has a plan. And then the Rockefeller, in a paper in 2010, Lockstep is locked down, a pandemic that would lock everybody down and do what it's doing. So Rockefeller's plan is in place, happening right now. Then we have Polny. He talks more about the, right here, the biblical timeline. And we'll go into that. End times theories for some people. We got the Economist magazine saying everything's under control. So you got the people that you don't know who they are, pulling the strings like the government, and then the people are just sheep or dogs. We got the coronavirus. We know that was a plan of the economists and of the Rockefellers and of the deep state. And I had the oddest thing happen to me. I learned about the Economist magazine from SGT report. And he said it just came out. And so I Googled it. I Googled everything's under control at the Economist magazine. And I just wanted the cover, you know. And when I got cover, all I got is a bunch of Iranian information on Google. I mean, all the pages were Google. I really want to know what the article is about, because I'm sure inside everything's under control. They're going to have an article about it, right? Well, the magazine itself costs $95 or something like that. And so, you know, I'm going to have to find out what somebody else reads. I'm not going to buy it. And find out what somebody else says is inside there and what they actually mean by this. So there's 3 plans. You got God, who is in control of everything. He planned Jesus' death 2,000 years ago, and it happened. And then you've got these two fighting forces, President Trump's. Most people think God is with President Trump, and the trust of plan is supposed to be God. And then a little later, we'll show you how Alex Jones is going to come out, and he said he's going to reveal the founders of Q. If the original ones, who he knows who they are, don't come out, he's going to do it himself, because he said Q is taken over. Aaliyah says Q is taken over. Michelle says Q is occultic, satanic, demonic. And it did kind of warp into a cultish kind of thing. But there's a lot of truth to it. So let's get on to the truth in Q. So Q's been sharing it's going to be biblical. It's going to be biblical. Well, see, that could go both ways. Most of the Q posts, they know what's going to happen before it happens. So if it's a globalist, I've often thought this. Well, you knew it was going to happen because you did it. Okay, it could go that way. It could be the globalists. They did it. And so they're acting like they're good guys, and they've got this Project Looking Glass that tells them the future when actually, they're causing it to happen. Or it could be they do know what's going to happen, and they could be the team, the Trump team. We don't know. We really don't know. It's everybody's guess. The way you get your 1 delta and 2 deltas is somebody in Twitter can hold back President Trump's tweet for a certain time. See, Google can do all that stuff. They can change timestamps on things, and they can hold. Trump could put a post out, a Twitter out at like 2 o'clock, and then they could hold it until 2:05 to get the right time. Or, they could put a post out first and hold that. It's just things they can do behind the scenes to make these deltas look like it really did happen. And so I'm not saying one way or another. I'm saying there's 3 plans, and I thought we'd talk about them and discuss them. Now, I found this to be interesting, that this is what the Q team is saying, and we're going to go into that. This is X22 report. Let's see what they have to say. Let me introduce myself. This is PG, or Patriot Gallery. The date is April 2nd, 2020. Here we go.
Open and think about what I'm putting out there first, because it will make sense a little bit later. So in San Diego, a tunnel task force, they uncovered a sophisticated cross-border drug tunnel under the U.S.-Mexico border. And they seized around 4,400 pounds of illicit drugs. Now, these tunnels, they were very advanced. Looks like they had train tracks. And let me read part of this. Federal agents on the San Diego Tunnel Task Force uncovered a sophisticated drug smuggling tunnel on March 19th, which extends under the United States-Mexico border to a warehouse in a commercial complex in the Otay Mesa area of San Diego. The discovery of the tunnel resulted from an ongoing investigation by members of the San Diego Tunnel Task Force, which included U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, U.S. Border Patrol, the Drug Enforcement, and the rest. So they found this sophisticated tunnel that ran from Mexico to the U.S. into a warehouse. And they were smuggling drugs. What else could they smuggle through this? Maybe other things. But let me continue. Now, 2 years ago, the Army, they spent $500 million to train soldiers to fight underground. Now, that's very interesting. So they found some tunnels that were very advanced, and now we have the Army training underground. So for this new type of warfare, infantry units will need to know how to effectively navigate, communicate, breach heavy obstacles, attack enemy forces in underground mazes ranging from confined corridors to tunnels as wide as residential streets. Soldiers will need new equipment and training to operate in conditions such as complete darkness, bad air, lack of air, and they're going to have to take cover from enemy fire in areas that challenge the standard Army communications equipment. So they've been training to fight underground. Why? Why have they been training to do this? They, in the picture that they show in this, they even have an oxygen sensor robot that goes ahead to see if there is oxygen in the tunnels or how low the oxygen is. Now that's very interesting. So at this point, I want you to take a listen to what Trump said, because he's telling us that the next 2 weeks are going to be very, very painful. Take a listen to what Trump says.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. And then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks. When you look and see at night the kind of death that's been caused by this invisible enemy, it's incredible. I was watching last night Governor Murphy of New Jersey say 29 people died today, meaning yesterday, and others talking about numbers far greater. But you get to know a state. I know New Jersey so well, and you hear 29 people, and hundreds in other locations, hundreds in other states. And this is going to be a rough 2 week period. As a nation, we face a difficult few weeks as we approach that really important day when we're going to see things get better all of a sudden. And it's going to be like a burst of light, I really think, and I hope. Our strength will be tested and our endurance will be tried.
Municipal bonds don't typically get the media coverage that the stock market does. In fact, some people may even find them boring.
But America will answer with love and courage and ironclad resolve. This is the time for all Americans to come together and do our part.
If you listen to what he said these next 2 weeks are going to be very, very painful, but we're going to have a bright light at the end of this, and it's all going to end. Now that's very, very interesting. He said some other things, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, remember what he said here, the next 2 weeks. And I'm not saying I'm predicting that it's all going to happen. You're going to see mass arrests. Everyone's going to be taken away. For some reason, I think something else is going on here. And it might make sense to everyone as I go through this. Now, we've been hearing earthquakes all over the place. And one's just been in Idaho. And again, why are these things happening? We don't know. But they are very strange. But I wanted to talk about what this month is, because I think it's very interesting that Trump decided to make this month a couple of things. He released a couple of statements, and let me read to you what these are. This month, April 2020, is National Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. This month, April, is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. This month, April, is Cancer Control Month. This month, April, is National Donate Life Month. This month in April is Second Chance Month. Now, keep that in mind. This is what he's just done. And think about the different statements he put out there. So, if this is Child Abuse Prevention Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Prevention Month, let's go back to some of Q's posts. This is post 3422. This says, New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. And Q would like us to research this, dig on that. Now that's very interesting because I believe this is coming up once again. Post 2939. This says, Huber says every one of the prosecutors is already handling about 20 cases. They range from domestic terrorism to court-authorized wiretaps of criminal organizations to child pedophiles and those who would exploit our children. criminal aliens, big fraud schemes. Then we go to post 2872. This is February 22nd, 2019. This is about the Hillary Clinton Foundation, crimes against children, and Anthony Weiner's laptop. Post 2365 gives us a picture of Fox News, Clinton Foundation, and crimes against children. So think about what Q has been telling us all along. It's children, it's pedophiles, it's human trafficking. Post 1964. This is August 28th, 2018. Patriots are dying to defend this great country and the freedom she provides. Children are being kidnapped, tortured, raped, and sacrificed in the name of pure evil. Stay the course. We are fighting a deeply entrenched enemy. Fighting a deeply entrenched enemy. Could that be underground? So pure evil is about to be exposed to the world. And then we have to think, why are hospitals being prepped? When we look around, is the coronavirus that bad? Why all of a sudden, in these next 2 weeks, why is Trump telling us that it's going to be very painful for the American people? But he believes it's going to be over very, very quickly with a bright light, and the country's going to have to come together. Why do we need all these ventilators? I mean, when everyone's looking around Central Park, and there's no patients there. Actually, on the Mercy and the Comfort, they're not taking patients until next week, and they're not COVID-19 patients. They're individuals that don't have COVID-19, and they'll be taking around 50 a day. Keep that in mind. Why are Mercy and Comfort in the ports? Why are they providing Mercy and Comfort? Why has the censorship been removed from Google?
Now, all this is just guesses. And that's one thing I don't like about Q. There's never anything to the point. That's why I like to get to the end of my blog so you can go on about your business once I get to the point of it all. He did that, X22, but before that came about, I found this one. And it's basically along the same topic, but this lady gives more information that I found quite interesting. Let me find the right time. See, I do not believe President Trump will lie. He has so many enemies. He can't lie.
Twice, and there is no
because
Dr.
as
Collins.
soon as he lies, they are going to jump him on any lie, and that will be the end of Trump. And he said that 29 people had died, but then Jason Goodman went there and he showed the hospital, and it's like there's nobody there. And so many people were checking these hospitals, it's like nobody's there. And I thought, Trump lied. But is it possible he didn't lie? Because he can't lie, because that's the end of him. I mean, the media would eat him alive if he did. So let's see what she has to say here. I'm sorry. Let me introduce you to Lori Coley. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. And I also want to say, Lori, I'm just using this for research and educational purposes. And I'm giving you credit for this, your show on YouTube, Planned, Demonic, and the things that don't add up. See, I thought the same thing. This stuff just doesn't add up. And throughout the whole month of March, nothing was adding up.
Smith that works there. Critical care patients are in gowns, not shoes and street clothes. They have plenty of ventilators. This is a flat-out lie.
She's talking about a report that was on NBC or CBS, one of those channels, and you could prove the whole point was fake and fraud, which those newscasts do that often. They make up phony stories. But what comes next here, number two, is what's important.
The president keeps saying over and over again, nobody can believe it. I'm going to be reading some clips from yesterday's press conference. And this was actually put out by the White House. It's on their press release that they issue,
And
and
this
so
was-
I lifted this directly from there. This is President Donald Trump. I watched as doctors and nurses went into a certain hospital in Elmhurst this morning. I know Elmhurst, Queens. I grew up right next to it. I know the hospital very well, and seeing it all my life, my young life, and I will tell you that to see the scenes of trailers out there and what they're doing with those trailers, they're freezers, and nobody can even believe it. All right, let me back up. This was what I took out of a report of the things that he said that were off the cuff yesterday. I'll get to his written statement in just a minute. Okay, so he says, I grew up right next to this hospital, and then he says, and seeing it all my life, my young life. All right, so why would he even say that, my young life? And then he says there are scenes of trailers. What, like a movie scene? Like, you know, the trailers that they use to store movie props? Okay, and then he says, and I spoke to some of my friends. They can't believe what they're seeing, and I watched the doctors and the nurses walking into that hospital this morning. It's like military people going into battle, going into war. The bravery is incredible. And I just have to take my hat. I would take my hat if I were wearing a hat. I'd rip that hat off so fast and I would say, you people are just incredible. They really are. They're very brave. They're going in and they don't know. You have lots of things flying around in the air. You don't know what you're touching. Is it safe? All right. Next.
Jason Goodman went there, and there are military, whether it's National Guard, I don't know, there at that hospital, but he went to several hospitals, and no other hospital has the military.
Next. This is another clip. Now, I do not believe this was yesterday, but this was a few days ago. The president said, this is in my community in Queens, New York. I have seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television and faraway lands, never in my country. When I see the trucks pull up to take out bodies, and these are trucks that are as long as the Rose Garden, and they're pulling up to take out bodies, and you look inside and you see the black body bags, and you say, what is in there? It's Elmhurst Hospital. Must be supplies. It's not supplies, it's people. I have never seen anything like it.
Now, if there is something going on that we don't know about, Trump's going to be in a situation room where they have cameras on everything, and the military has cameras so the president can watch as things happen. And so, if I'm correct, he doesn't lie. He's explaining what he saw from a situation room of a military exercise going on. And I mentioned to somebody the other day, if Trump does something, you won't know about it till after it happens. It's very stealth. Like he said in his campaign, if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to project it, let the enemy know what I'm going to do before I do it. Nobody will know what he's going to do beforehand.
All right, now, CNN writes, Trump also described body bags in hospital hallways, but CNN has seen no evidence that there are body bags in the hallways of the hospital. There are refrigerated trucks where hospital personnel have been putting bodies to alleviate the capacity of the regular morgue. And the president said yesterday, this is a plague. Things are happening that we've never seen before in our country. It's a war zone. And then he said, we're going to rescue the most vulnerable among us. Now, this all goes along with my personal theory. I've seen it out there by other Anons, that we are seeing the rescue of people who have been enslaved in the most deplorable, horrendous conditions that we can imagine, having things done to them that are unmentionable. Number 3, this is the rescuing stuck young people.
Now, this can also mean drugs. In here, in Cincinnati, we can almost guarantee there was a time before President Trump became president, even the year of 2016, the years leading up to that, 2014, 15, almost every street had some child, teenager up to 30 years old, who had died of an overdose of drugs. And we do know that the people who push the drugs do use the tunnels.
All right, now, this is a statement from the president. Since January 29th, we have successfully repatriated over 25,000 Americans from more than 50 countries where they were literally stuck, in some cases locked in. Okay? That, to me, that doesn't say shut down, that says incarcerated. You probably read about the young people in Peru and young people in Brazil, and they were absolutely stuck, and we got them out. Got them. Almost everybody is out now, back home with their parents, their wives, their husbands. I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going through a very tough 2 weeks, and then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very, very painful 2 weeks. Light at the end of the tunnel. That suggests underground to me. Now, I know this is just, where's my tinfoil hat? This is just theorizing, but you have to read between the lines, and we know our president is doing 5D chess, and I believe he's sending us some important messages that we cannot ignore. So CJ Truth is another one I follow on Twitter, and he put this out there. Does this look like they are caring for CV patients? Samaritan's Purse is about ministry. Our alphabet friend has always said this is about the children. Be prepared for what will be revealed. Okay, and then Castery Warrior writes, Samaritan's Purse crew and medical personnel work on preparing to open a 68-bed emergency field hospital specially equipped with a respiratory unit in New York's Central Park on March 31st. Okay, and then
this also can be for if people are locked down and they don't have food or they don't have their money. We are addicted to money. People have to have their money. They lose their jobs. There could be a lot of civil unrest because psychologists have studied that people go berserko if they don't have their money, if they don't have what they need, if they can't go out and get their, like an alcoholic or a drug addict or somebody who's used to going out to eat all the time. We have several addictions that people are used to going down to the coffee shop and getting their coffee every day. And if those places are closed or they can't get their money to buy these things, there'd be a lot of civil unrest. So a lot of this stuff can be for a real war of civil unrest.
this is from the president's speech. I just spoke with Franklin Graham, who is an extraordinary person, and Samaritan's Purse has been, like so many others, just been amazing and so fast. They did it so fast. He's been doing that for a long time, but I think people are really seeing what they have done. Franklin Graham, a very special family. Okay, now, this is from a 2018 article written June 24th in Military Times. It is about...
Now, we saw that on X-22, how the military was preparing and practicing for warfare underground. The little subtitle, what are the aspects of mega cities that we have paid the least attention to lately? And every mega city has gotten sewers and subways and stuff that you can encounter. So let's brush up a little bit.
The date, I believe that Mike Pompeo spoke about, he said January 31st, and he talked about 26,000 to 27,000 people repatriated. So maybe the president wanted to just point out the 29. I'm going to show you why. So here we have yesterday more speech with double meanings. When you look and see at night the kind of death that's been caused by this invisible enemy, it's incredible. Now, why would he say, look and see at night? All right. I was watching last night Governor Murphy of New Jersey say 29 people died today, meaning yesterday, and others talking about the numbers far greater. But you get to know a state. I know New Jersey so well, and you hear 29 people and hundreds in other locations, hundreds in other states, And this is going to be a rough 2-week period. So I would suggest that all of these missions to rescue people are going on during the next 2 weeks. He's also said maybe 3 weeks. And then this came out from Tom Fitton. Sure enough, yesterday's IG report shows at least 29 more potentially illegal FISA warrants. Okay, maybe he's communicating things with the number 20.
See here, let's get back to the blog. So that was Lori Collier. You can find her on YouTube. I want to go to 1649 to 18.
It's open in grocery stores, gas stations. Why would we put up with this? Only because it's the children whose well-being is at stake. Next, POTUS warns them about other things. So I'm going to be going through some of his tweets. Congress must pass the old and very strongly proven deductibility by businesses on restaurants and entertainment. This will bring restaurants and everything related back and stronger than ever. Move quickly, they will all be saved. Okay, a lot of the trafficking happens in restaurants and in the quote-unquote entertainment industry. If we move quickly, they will all be saved. That's just my interpretation. And then this next one, upon information and belief, Iran or its proxies are planning to sneak attack the let's start that again. Iran or its proxies are planning a sneak attack on U.S. troops and or assets in Iraq. If this happens, Iran will pay a very heavy price indeed. What else has Iran been used for? It's a money pot by the deep state, and possibly it is a place where people and goods are moved through in order to keep the rat lines going for the deep state's benefit.
Okay, that's done with her post. Get over here. I did, there's one that I just wanted to point out on the X22 report that's not on here because I had so much trouble. I was ready to go. It was 2:01 and I was going to hit play and everything, the internet went down. It would not come up. I had to take the computer down twice and even take the battery out because I could not get internet. But at the time, I have 2 computers in my room and one is working just fine. So it wasn't my Wi-Fi connection, and the computer I'm working on is the best one in the house. And so it shouldn't have any trouble. If anything, the old computer would have trouble. So here I want to click on this and go back to X22 report.
COVID-19.
Just a moment.
And they'll be taking 50
at the right time
50
on here
a day. Keep that in mind.
31. Good enough. I think this is my problem.
The social media and all these other things that we're talking about, how they're going to kill all of this. I believe what Q might be saying, and remember I'm interpreting all of this, he might be saying that when this information starts to come out, because as we can see, like CNN, they're not even covering the presser anymore. The mainstream media, the social media sites, they might try to block this stuff. Now, Google right now is left open. Will they try to control it and block it? I don't know. But Facebook, Twitter, and the rest, they might try to kill all this information coming out. And I think maybe that is what Q is talking about when they're talking about the social media sites like Google Kill and Facebook Kill and Twitter Kill and all these things, that they're trying to kill the information coming out. And Trump and the Patriots might have to use the emergency broadcast system to get a lot of the information out and what the operation entails.
So that would make sense why I had so much trouble. I mean, I had lots of trouble. The program that we use to film on and to broadcast on, it wouldn't work either. And we never have trouble with that. So it was very odd that I had all this trouble. The X-22 report was night and day. It just came out with it 6 hours ago. The children, saved them, saved the best for last. And it's about, so I guess they're basically saying that there are children who have been trafficked underground and they've been held slaves. And they do the nasty stuff, I guess, in these tunnels underground. And so they're going in there and getting them out. And there might be a lot of dead bodies. Plus, if there's military involved and they're fighting a war underground, there would be a lot of need for a military medical ship to be in New York and a military medical ship to be in Los Angeles, because maybe that's where the hub of the, even if it's drug cartels, whatever the plague that President, because you know it's not the coronavirus. It's not that. There's too many empty hospitals, and there's too many lies by doctors saying, oh, we have lines and lines of people, and they're not there. So it can't be that. So I wanted to show the Economics magazine. We did that. Economist magazine. Everything under control. There are several plans going on here. Remember, what we want to focus on is what God's plan is. Because men put their plans out there and fulfill their plans, but then God has his plan too. And I was going to name this trust. Who can you trust? Because you look at all the different sides, because we found out we've been lied to for the last 100 years. And they can say something has a great name, like the Patriot Act, and it took all our freedoms from us. And we can, they can again say, well, United States is a great country and it's wonderful, and if we let them get away with this, they'll put us in lockdown, or they'll, Alex Jones said, they're going to take our lands from us. I'm like, they did that in 1913. So there's a lot of confusion going on here. So we want to dig in. Let me read what this says. So there are 2 or 3 plans. Trust the plan. Which one? President Trump, the Rockefeller, they wrote this all down, and we know Bill Gates had part in this, and Agenda 21 has a part in this, UN has a part in this. That's 2010 Lockstep. That's about technology. That Rockefeller plans about making a technological world, basically get rid of all the people and use robots. And then we got Polny, and he talks about a divergence. Now, I know this to be a fact. There's going to be a separation in our minds, in our feelings, in our emotions, and it's going to avert catastrophe. There's going to be a turn within each of us that are called by God, chosen by God, and it will separate us from the bad guys, globalists, and that's God. And the end times, everybody says Jesus is coming back. Well, it's more like Jesus said the kingdom of God is within us. It's a return of the knowledge of morals and ethics and the laws of God written within us. It's already there. But with all these lies, you can't get to it, because it takes the power of God to get the lies out of your brain, because it's all demonic. So this is what I call the month of the month. I had a program that I did. It was March 11th week. I said that was the week of the pandemic, and now I'm calling it the month of the pandemic. And it brings in fascism, worldwide government lockdown, martial law, technocracy. So that is totally the Rockefeller globalist plan that is happening, that we can all see that happening. I mean, we're locked in our homes. We can't go out. So we know that plan is happening. Now, this blog is going to be a view on the inside, the interior, examination or inspection. Now, we all have a slower paced life now. Finally, people get to slow down. You don't have to get up and go, 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 go. And that might make some people insane. That might be for civil unrest. That's why we have all these tents and the hospitals ready for that. You got 200 million guns in the United States of America. And those who are very sound-minded people might lose it. They might not know what's going on, and so might take law into their own hands. But what we have to do is we have to take time and think and contemplate. Since we're no longer in a fast-paced world, but a slow-paced world, men, women, and children can actually have time to think before they do anything. And the question is, are the machines going to take over? They say they got drones in LA, out of speakers, and in Italy. They have drones, and I think Spain. They have drones out in the streets talking to people. I mean, do we have Skynet? We know that they're putting together 47,000 satellites to make the net, or Skynet. Is this going to be complete surveillance with satellites in space surrounding us and surrounding the Earth, but on the ground? You're going to have 5G on the ground covering the Earth, so we'll be surveilled from above and on the ground. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. What happened to a year ago, in 2019, just in December, we're celebrating the Great Awakening. Hong Kong was coming alive. Brexit, Brazil, Hungary, Poland, China. There's lots of dissenters. All of a sudden, they're all silenced. This is about Brexit. Following a general election, Parliament ratified the withdrawal agreement, and the UK left the EU at 11 p.m. GTM on the 31st of January 2020. Everybody was celebrating. We were so excited. All this good was happening everywhere. The UK remains subject to EU law and remains part of the EU customs union and single market during the transition, but is no longer a part of the EU's political bodies or institutions. So all this coming up here, none of it's really been edited. It's a bunch of stuff I threw together, and I never felt a release to share it with anybody. Oh, this is Alex Jones. He just did this just earlier today. I didn't bring it up earlier.
We all know who started Q. Should I just tell all the Q heads? It's all about fantasy land, and this is going to happen, and it's exciting, and you wait, and it doesn't happen 99% of the time. It's because it was set up to create a Fight Club deal and to see if they can get people excited and to be able to put articles out that Hillary's going down for Satanism, which is true, and Trump is trying, and there are good people in the government that are going after him, and that's all really happened. So that now even the co-founder of Wikipedia has come out and said, ritual sex slavery is real, it's all going to come out. So there was a healthiness to it, but it got hijacked by the very people that created it and has now become a thing that gets people to not take action because you're supposed to just not do anything. But it's not Dungeons and Dragons and live action role play for everybody. And the people that created it are big Star Wars fans and live action role play. And they're real people, but they just know everybody works. You know what? I'll just expose it. Okay, like I gave Joe Rogan a deadline, and I love Joe. He's a good guy. I like these guys, too. I give them till next Tuesday to come out with it all, or I'm going to expose it next Wednesday. There. 7 days. There you go. And get all the documents. Let's start firing it up. Get it ready. Okay? Just watch, okay? There's something real for you, folks. That's not talk. This is the real world right here. This is not fantasy land. And I risk my life doing this. This isn't... I give them till next Tuesday to come out with it all, or I'm going to expose it next Wednesday. There. 7 days. There you go. And get all the documents. Let's start firing it up. Get it ready. Okay? Just watch. Okay? There's something real for you, folks. That's not talk.
So, got something to look forward from Alex Jones. So let's get to the bottom line of there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 different blogs I have to do, or I have here to share all the things that happened in March. But let's get down to Polny. He says the new era of time starts in April of Jesus coming back. He has 33-page description of the 7 weeks as 7 days in the beginning of creation, and if each day is 1,000 years, he shows that each of those days is 1,000 years, and he explains it in his way of thinking. And in 2000, this year, or this millennial, we started the day of rest, the 7th day. The new era, God enters into his rest. Steve Turley is always talking about a new conservative age is rising, of Christianity rising. That's absolutely true. And I just wanted to state, see, God lives in us. So if we have a Jesus returning, that's God lives in us, and people to know that and be aware of that. And when the temple when Jesus died, the curtain was rent in two, because God doesn't need a temple anymore, because the people have become the temple, and we are the home of God. God's home is now within us. The kingdom of God is within us, and God just speaks to us and loves us, and we hear his voice, and he teaches us. That's all in you before you were 3, 4, 5 years old, but they sent you to public school so you'd never remember it. They get you at a very young age, so you have to go back. Jesus says you must become like children to enter the kingdom of God, because all the information there, God gave it to you when you were born. I say return of men realizing and talking about the power of God is the power of God that breaks us free from the lies and spells that we've been taught for the last 100 years. God reigning within men. It's already in them without them knowing it. The Pilgrim's Monument describes this perfectly. It's not that it's always been that men didn't know this. From 2,000 years ago, when Jesus died, the disciples went out, and people would turn to God, and they were aware of God living in it. They were aware of the power they had. Even the Founding Fathers and the Pilgrims, they were aware of things, of the power of God living in them, the Word of God written in them, the laws of God in them. But it was stripped of us in this last 100 years. Men and women ruled internally by the laws of God written within them. Our minds, our bodies, filled with the knowledge of God. Healthy. If God is living in you by his Spirit, you're going to be very healthy. And the happily ever after ending is real. The Sabbath rest. And Jesus brings peace on the earth. Jesus did bring peace on the earth. All the wars you hear about, the Crusades, that was Satanism. And that's bad people who, like this last century, the bankers love war because there's money in war. There's power, there's control over mass amounts of people in war. So if you want to be a dictator, you want to be this grand ruler of the world, you're going to have lots of wars. So war is not made by Christians. War is made by those who want to conquer. Men and women ruled internally by the laws of God written within them. Our minds and bodies filled with the knowledge of God, and we have happily ever after. God provides for everybody, like the birds of the air and like the lilies of the field. You'll know that kind of provision. Each person owning his own land. God blessing the crops in due season, animals multiplying. No one trespassing on someone else's land or property. Or nobody wants what belongs to somebody else, but will have peace and quiet. And that is the power of the Sabbath. The Sabbath Sunday actually has power. The laws of God have power. The Word of God has power. We just have to get back to it and throw off the lies in our brains. And that power is within me. I use it every day to get set free more and more. It's demonic power over our minds of lies. So, what Bo Pony's talking about, this works for me. Now, the timeline, Bo has using numbers. He's a mathematician. He actually owns gold and silver, one of those gold and silver businesses where he buys and sells. So he's knows numbers and times and amounts and values, etc. And I know nothing about what he's talking about. This is on the Greg Hunter show, just recently put out with Bo Pony. I'll bring it up in just a minute. So I cannot verify what he's saying in that, but I can say the Sabbath rest, the 7,000 years, in the last 1,000 years, there's going to be a time of rest. Because he says until 2039, there'll still be some tribulation. I mean, but I don't want to think about that because I'm entering my peace and my rest. Bo says, get out of the cities and provide for yourself. And everybody's saying that. SGT did a report. It's on here. Get out of the cities. What this coronavirus is going to teach us is get out of the cities. And provide for yourself. You know, well water, sowing wheat in the fields, horses for transportation. Now, I've seen that in my mind's eye. God has given me visions for that. And gold, yes. And I didn't know it, but in 1986, the Lord had given me gold, to use gold. But it made no sense to me. And so, and I couldn't do gold myself. I didn't know it was in the Constitution. And it wasn't until recently that I remembered it. And I could see how God told me, God told me to quit my job. I was working at a job. He said, quit my job, stay home, raise my children, and not to use money. That's the words I got in 1986. Do not use money. I didn't know what it meant. You know, I didn't know about the gold and stuff. And now I got it. Until now, I received meltdown gold. And I received, God told Abraham to melt gold down and use it for money. And I was to do the same thing. That happened in 1986. I didn't know. And it's the same time God told me to divorce my husband. He was a very, very bad man. Evil man. And through brainwashing is why I ended up marrying somebody who would abuse me and my children. Because I was abused growing up. You marry somebody who was abusive. That's why God actually set me free and gave me liberty. I didn't have to stay married. Because a lot of abused women stay with them because you can't divorce. That's bad. But here, this person's abusing you. That's bad. And so, if the best way to, you don't have the inner strength to stand up to the person, you've got to leave that person. So God gives us gold to fulfill his calling on this earth. Just like he did Mary and Joseph. When Jesus was born, God brought him a chest of gold. And Jesus provided for Mary and Joseph. And then God provides with us with farms and barns and ponds and horses for transportation, just like he did the founding fathers and all the people who came to America. They came to America with nothing, but they came here for land. They were going to have land, and they were going to build up a farm on the land because they left the landowners, because they're the wealthy. Landowners are the wealthy. And so these people want to be wealthy themselves and own land themselves. Not work in a job, not work in an industry, but own your land and 40 hours a week on your land. You be wealthy because you keep all the profit yourself. And God told me horses are transportation. He created land for horses. Now, everywhere around in Cincinnati, Ohio, God also gave me a vision of farms and barns everywhere, but that was here in Cincinnati, because other places, southwestern Ohio, you might have something else. Each land is different, and your needs are different, and what you're going to have to provide for yourself is going to be different according to the resources on that land. Now, my great-great-grandfather cleared the land here in southwestern Ohio, and started a civilization here where there was no civilization. God working with him. And I'm just going to be fulfilling my mother's task was to follow in her grandfather's footsteps, and then I follow my mother, etc., etc. So I'll be following his leadership. And my grandfather was a farmer, and that's what he started. So that's the end of this. All these blogs add up, and Leah and Michelle are ecstatic right now because lots of people say it's a lockdown. Leah and Michelle are going to say we have been set free. See, during the Depression, all the land was taken, all the farms were taken, and then in 1930 they brought in compulsory education. Communism actually started in 1930 in the United States of America when they took all the gold. Americans had no money after that. Money is only gold and silver. So if you don't have gold in your pocket, silver in your pocket, you have no money. And you read the Bible, God doesn't say anything but gold and silver when he talks about money. So if you're talking about the Bible and you're talking about God, God's going to be saying gold and silver because God can't lie and God can't change. If he said gold and silver to Abraham, he's saying gold and silver to us. And that's what your money is. And so you can't use God and say God wants you to use credit cards. I mean, you can use this. God can use that for good. Okay? But that's not the real God. You know, there's God's permissive will and God's absolute truth. And so if you're talking to God face to face and you're hearing God, he's going to say what his word says. And his word only says gold and silver. So if you're talking about God, you're going to be talking gold and silver. Real money. Oh, Michelle and Leah, they're ecstatic because with the Depression, they took all the men and forced them through property taxes, through having to have electricity, through having to have kerosene, through having to have all these different things in order to succeed and compete with corporations. Men had to have the fiat dollars. And so men who worked their land as farmers lost their land to those who had the fake paper dollars and had all the gold. And if the paper just flies away, it's gone in no time. And so all men were taken off their farms and forced into factories. Children were educated at home mostly, or a small one-room schoolhouse. And then they were forced into this horrible government educational system and forced into these businesses and forced into the assembly line. And Leah and Michelle are ecstatic. It's kind of like in Ohio, our governor made abortion illegal. Elective abortions illegal while this is going on. And it's like, oh my gosh, he ended abortion in Ohio. Okay, and right now, children aren't dying in Ohio. And so Leah and Michelle are ecstatic. God has set the people free using this coronavirus. So many people aren't working. The children are home. The parents are with their children. They're educating. Parents are educating their children. Parents are spending more time with their children. That's the way God made it. And the Declaration of Independence talks about nature. And nature's God. The Amish had it right. On all these reports of the honest men, being dependent on other people is not good, because what happens when there's a pandemic? What happens when there's an emergency? The Declaration of Independence is about being independent. And mostly you can do everything for yourself on your land. We have chickens, we have pigs, we have grow our own food, we store our things ourselves. The only reason we don't make all our clothes is because the manufacturers get a better price on the material and the things you need because they buy in such huge bulk. But shut down the manufacturing, the material is going to be cheaper, and I've heard it go 2 or 3 different ways. We're in a deflation, we're in a hyperinflation. But just know this, God is bringing a time of rest, a time of peace, where if you have all this time, you're not at work, you're not rushed, you have time to make your own clothes, and you can do it with your family. And God sets us free from sin, and sets us free so we can love one another. and your children love you, and you love them, and you love your grandparents, you love your mom and dad, and you love your aunts and uncles. I mean, I don't know about you, but I probably have 100,000 relatives in this area. I should never go without anything, and they should never go without. I just have to get to know them again, and you get to know your family again. And so the bars are shut down. So many things are shut down that are very immoral. And people have to be happy at home, but they're going to have to think. It used to be you put someone in jail, give them a time to think about what they had done and what they did wrong, so they might repent and stop doing it. And so a lot of times, this time is the time to just contemplate and think. And God is actually setting people free right now with inside themselves and set free from the bondage they were in. So a lot of people are ecstatic that this is a jubilee, because we know it's not really a virus. I've heard that if it's a real war with China or with the globalists, they might send out another one. But if we're already home and we're separated and we're quarantined, it's going to be a hard time to do what the Georgia Guidestones say, which is to get rid of almost everybody on the planet. So this is a very exciting time. I do want to show you, and if hopefully you'll get to go to Greg Hunter's show on Polny. Oh, there's another thing. Alex Jones has this up now. So Polny calls it a new age, a new era, a time of entering into God's rest. And we know Dr. Turley calls it a new conservative age rising. And Alex Jones looks at the negative everything. He believes that people should be scared into action. I've seen pastors do that, scare people into salvation. Love brings salvation. Love brings health. You can't scare people. It's God's love that heals and restores and brings life. But anyways, so Alex Jones is saying rise of communism. And I can agree with that in many ways, because that's what the Rockefellers are, and China getting together with Russia. They support all these communistic regimes. And so that's their plan. But I had a comment on here. This man said, I prefer a new age of humans. And I said, okay, so you're a new age humanist. And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah, that's what you are. If you believe in humans, because he goes on to say, I do not believe such things, and you suppose much. I use the word humans as a collective, not a religion. But whatever you believe and whatever your philosophy of life is, that's your religion. That's what you believe. And he didn't get that. You have told me repeatedly what I am and what I think, yet not once have you asked me. And what his words tell me what he's telling. I mean, how do you understand somebody? Their words are telling you who they are and what they are. And so you know what they are by what they say. Or, you should say what you mean and mean what you say. That's integrity. Or he's not meaning what he's saying. He's playing with words, which is deceptive, again. But man is not God. I told him, the New Ageism is man is God. But anyways, I go on to say, well, if you believe in collectivism, well, that is communism. Or the Tower of Babel, he believes that, I didn't finish this whole thing. Okay, I believe in man and what he could be if we work as one. Okay, I believe in man and what he could be if we work as one. Where we go one, we go all. Well, if you believe in man and as we work as one, that is communism. Most people are communism and coming out of public school and socialism, and they don't even know what they believe, what it is. Leah said she talked to a lady the other day, and she didn't know what socialism, communism is. And that's weird to me. And so he believes in what man can be if we work as one, if we put our petty differences aside. And I got him from the beginning. As soon as I saw he believed in that, so you're going to force your religion on everybody. And that's what happens with communism. If we put our petty differences aside, he wanted to put all religion aside, everything aside, and no badges. We're all the same. We're all one. Well, that's what communism does. And they just don't know what communism is. And this is a cute, where we go one, we go all, is the Q site. All the Q people kind of conjugate here. I follow Q. I just want to know what's going on because it's a phenomenon. It's as historic as March in 2020 is the Q movement. Q movement is a phenomenon as much as this month where the world stops is a phenomenon. And so I follow it because you have to know these things if you want to stay on top of things. So I tried to explain to him how in the 1913s, you know, they stole all the land, they stole all the money, they stole the gold and silver coins, and we became a collective through FDR, Social Security. Everybody put their money together. They had mass road construction. That's socialism, that's communism, and they destroyed all the family farms. They destroyed morals and ethics. They threw true liberty out the door. And then at the end of it all, they got rid of Christianity, got rid of the Bible, got rid of the Ten Commandments. They got rid of men even talking about the Bible. You used to go to court and you could use the Bible in the court. You used to go to Congress. You could use the Bible in the Congress to make rules and laws. And they got rid of all that. And this is what this man wants to do. They murdered millions of children. And I told him, listen, if women stop having abortions, they're going to stay home. Okay, if they have 6 or 7 kids, they're going to stay home. And then the men are going to be home, and they're going to be on the farms because it's cheaper to grow your own food and raise your own children and make your own clothes. And then there'll be no more mass industry. That's what happens with the reason they have, and there'll be no more contraceptives. That's what happened with FDR. When socialism comes in, that's satanic. It's the opposite of freedom and liberty. So I just wanted to point out there's several different things going on. The era of rise of communism, the rise of Dr. Turlier. Okay, this is the Bo
We are
Pony.
being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. I'm Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times.
I messed my place.
And we stand for truth and tradition. 90%
I lost
of
my
news
place.
outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world they represent. The mission of the Epoch
I will be
Times is to chase the
editing
truth,
this to make
to
it
ground all
shorter
statements and facts,
and take out the
prevent people
blank
from being misled.
dead airspace.
This isn't just a mission.
Probably
of
not
the
tomorrow. It's going to be
it's
a
a
sunny
mission of
day. We're
those
going to
who
work in the
follow.
yard and grow our own
It's something
food.
we truly believe in.
To
The
grow
Epoch
our own
Times is
food.
independent. We're not controlled by
But
any
Dr.
special
Steve
interest,
Turley,
and
a
we
new
never will.
conservative age
The
rising.
Epoch Times is a non-partisan media.
Bo Pony
That
got a
means
new
we don't stand for any political
air,
party.
which is a
Our values are
7,000.
truth.
The last
This is a
1,000 years of
battle.
a day.
Battle between
Enter
truth and
into
deceit.
1,000 years of
A battle
rest.
between forces that would enslave this country in
And that's with the
darkness,
kingdom of God
and
being
between a
within
media
each
that
person.
wants to present you with the truth.
And then communism or
Subscribe
globalism.
today. and
They
join
want to
the
have an
Americans who are
air of
seeking truth
Aquarius.
and
That's the CIA. I heard that
We'd
from a
love to have
CIA
you on
guy.
board.
Talking about the year of Aquarius where we get rid of all religion. There'll be no religion left. and you're gonna have one world Bitcoin, and then one world government, one world surveillance
I'm Jeff
state.
Bishop. I'm the co-founder of
But that's not going to
RagingBull.com.
happen. The
I'm
reason
one of
it's
the
not
world's
going to
top
happen is
real
because
money stock option traders. Now today I want to share with you
Steve
something that I was
Truly
told many
also
years
works
ago.
with statistics.
That is that if you want to be in the top
And the
1%,
statistics
you
say
cannot keep
the
doing the things
conservative
that
age is rising
99%
because
do it
Christians are
every
having
single
all the
day.
children.
That means if you want
And because
to
they're
make
having
more
all the
money,
children, there's
if
going
you
to be
want
more
be rich like
Christians
you know
than
you
any
can
other
be, then you
group
cannot
because
keep
all
doing
the other
same
groups of
things
people
that have
on the
gotten you here
earth
where you are today.
aren't having children.
very special
So
offer for you
Christians are
right
going to take over,
I've
just
taken
a matter of
my
time.
20 years of trading experience,
But also,
and put my
the
best
power of God
tips,
is going to move and
secrets,
change the hearts
strategies
and minds
onto
of
one
men
easy-to-follow
also.
course that I call the Options
So you really
Profit
don't have to fear the
Accelerator.
communists
Now, if
because
you want to trade
they
stocks,
die off.
and
And
want
you
to
don't
become
have
truly
to fear the
successful
New
at it, you
Agers
need
because
to get
they
your
die
hands on
off.
it today.
Kind of like the
This is
Shakers,
my
they all
absolute
died off.
best-selling course.
And
I
so
want to give it to you
don't really have to worry about the
absolutely free right
globalists either because
There's no strings
really
attached.
none of them have
There's no
any
credit card
children.
needed.
If you look at
You just
Merkel,
need to enter your email.
Macron,
Let me know where I
most
can
of these
send it to
people
you,
do not
and get
have
your hands on it
children.
right now.
So
Put
once
this
they're gone,
information
they're
to work.
gone.
You could become a much
And
better
it's,
trader.
Christians are
There's
just
a
going to
few
take
key
over
secrets that you
by
need to
fact of
know
numbers.
that are going to help you elevate your game.
And they're not going to live and
So
they
get
have
your hands
nobody
on
to
it,
pass it on
put this
to.
information to work,
That's why they
and
want to
let's
get in public
start
school and
making
get
money
your
right
children
now.
to make your children their children to carry on for them. If you go to the Craig Hunter show, this is a 33-page teaching that Polny does, and you can read through it yourself. You can click on the link that Greg Hunter gives you. That's where I got this information from.
Release. I had a guest
It said
on
God
the beginning of
7,000
February,
year,
actually February 9th.
1,260 cycle, timing cycle, end time cycle, written from the beginning, so that you may know that God is God, the creator of all things. And he says God's seven kingdoms, Daniel's
That was the
timeline,
exact top of the market. And 160 points
a
after
6,000 year journey to the return of Messiah, Jesus Christ.
The fastest plunge
It's
in the
very
bear market
interesting.
territory.
Like I
It went
said,
down to
I don't go along
36%.
with all the
It's been down
dates and the
35 to
times and
40%,
end times,
36 and change.
business, the end of
And
the
then,
earth, the
for
end
a
of the
day this
world.
past week,
Well, the end of the world
out of
means
bear
the
market
world is
territory.
gone.
And then on Friday,
Okay, the Bible
bam,
says turn your back on the
after a
world.
$2.2 trillion
Repent, turn your back on the
stimulus,
world. So if you're a
porculus,
Christian, you have nothing to do with the world
debt-ulous
anyways.
package
And it's
was
just a
passed in the
time
House. It
when
passed
the
in
world
Senate
is
the day before.
gone,
It's gonna be
and
signed
people
by the president,
are full of
already
the
been
knowledge.
signed by
The whole
president. We
earth
get
will be full
almost
of the knowledge of Jesus
900
Christ.
point
That's why
drop.
Jesus died, so that would
That was
happen.
not
And you
what
can
they
look
were
forward to that
expecting.
happening.
That's not
Whether
what anybody
I think there'll be a
involved
struggle
in
now
to
that
the
people have
Trump
tasted
administration. This
freedom
is not his fault.
by
He has
being
a huge
home
debt
for this
problem.
long. It only takes 21
But,
days to break a habit.
And I'm bringing on
So
the
they're going to
person
be
that made
free
those
from the
big calls,
bondage that kept them at jobs and
Polny
working.
of,
And their minds are
2020
going to be free.
Forecast.com, correct? That's your
And now there's going to be a struggle, of
Close.
course.
Gold.
I've been through
Gold
it.
2020.
A struggle about, well, I like
But
being home, I like being free, but then I have to make money and I have to pay taxes, and of course there's the monetary reset going on. But you can rest assured that God has given us through 2014, 2015, 16, and 17
you made a big call back in February of 2020.
signs and
On my
wonders
weekly news wrap-up, I had said it
in
was
the
September. I don't know what I was
stars
thinking. I said
that
it.
are
I
only
had a
godly
disclaimer. But it was
signs of good
the
for
9th of
Christians and
February
bad
2020 when
omens
our
for bad
interview
people,
aired.
like
You are in the
the
early
eclipse
release now. Friday is over.
that recently
We had almost
happened.
a
Or
900
there was
point
actually a
drop.
Star of David
let's
that
key
happened.
off. Let's start right there.
Lots
as-
and
as we
lots
start
of
this
signs
interview.
saying God
What
is
happened?
going to
What do you think
bring
is going
peace
on?
upon the earth. That's
Everything that
Jesus'
I do,
message
Greg,
was,
it's about
be
timing.
of good cheer.
Timing is
I have come
critical,
to tell
not
you
so
good
much the
news. The
price.
King is born,
And
who's
so
going to
when
bring
we
peace upon
spoke
the earth.
last, we scheduled this interview the beginning of February.
Excuse me, so I hope
Why?
you can go and
Because
see
based
this.
on
If
the
you really
timing
get into that
cycle,
stuff,
the
I
markets
just
were
know what
supposed
God
to
has
talk,
shown
and they
me.
did exactly
And I
that.
concur
But then, once
with the
the
time
markets
of rest
talked,
and a time
we had
of
this sharp
peace.
drop right afterwards to the pretty much the exact level we were looking at, maybe around the 35%.
And that's on the Greg Hunter
It came down
show.
to 36%. So
It
that's
made
leg one.
March
The reason we
28,
scheduled that
2020,
interview
or
was
he put it up
because
March
earlier
2020.
in a prior
And we
video,
can hear a little bit of
I
it.
discussed with you this biblical timeline, this biblical cycle. It's the 4-2-1 cycle. And that was the completion of the 4 cycle last time we interviewed. And so a month ago, Greg, I asked you, Greg, if you want to do a second interview, let's do it at the end of March, which is right now. Why do we schedule the interview here at the end of March? Because if you go back to the slide presentation that I gave you of the last interview, the end of March was point letter D on the charts, D like David. So today, and this time point of March, the markets are sitting at letter point D like David. And what follows is a turn down and then a plunge into letter E, which comes in the month of April.
And here's the interview right here. You had a circle in this little box here. And sure enough, you said, hey, this could be epic. And a few days later, it was aired on the Sunday, and on Wednesday, bam! That was the top, and we had the sleigh ride right down the mountain. And then you said, and in your charting, when in the interview, you can go back and look at this, you said you had this kind of a pattern where it would go out, it would bounce up. Well, all this hoo-ha over the, this jubilation. We're going to have a debtulous package, a porculus package, a stimulus package. It would bounce up. And now you're saying, we're somewhere right around here. We're somewhere here. This is the end at 3:30, 3:31. That's the end of the D pattern. That's your timing. And then after that, hello, let's take a free ride down to, 15,000 or whatever. I mean, you had a couple of points you made the last time, and one of them hasn't happened yet. Tell me about your points. Tell me about where we are with this chart.
So looking at that chart, the timing point is not the pricing point, it's a timing point. The timing point ends at the end of March. So there's 2 more days, Monday and Tuesday. So potentially we might have a little bounce, maybe a little higher. It doesn't matter. But by the time Tuesday rolls along into, say, Wednesday of next week, the start of April, the markets begin to turn down again. And then we start working the one pattern. So it's 4 months, 2 months, 1 month. The 1 month is the month of April. The month of April is the move where the gold stock market is supposed to then fall into letter point E, like Edward. The letter point E, if I had to guess price, again, I don't like to give price, but I'll guess price. It's supposed to be the crash of the century, so that means that potentially shouldn't go greater than 50%. So that would take it to under 15,000 on the Dow potentially in the month of April.
And you said, listen, we had the stock market and the gold.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it was playing in the background, and I was told by someone in the chat that the audio in the background was making it difficult to hear me. I really wasn't saying anything that important. But that hopefully you'll be able to go and see some of Bo Pony's work here. He talks about the feet of clay and iron and all the different kingdoms. And how you can't mix iron and clay. And he gets good points on that. I think I just hit right on a commercial. Greg Hunter actually has his own commercials now with a separate company that is not Google.
Go do your homework on it, but creation was 4,000. Then at the time of creation, we knew that there was a war in heaven, so the angels were, third of Lucifer and a third of the angels were thrown out of heaven, and they were thrown to earth. Now, they weren't on earth, they were in earth. And then, so they had to be let onto earth. So basically, you had the Adam and Eve story, so they bite the apple, and then Lucifer,
now we're on page 3.
Gets onto the earth. Now we're on page 3. So
okay.
Evil gets onto the earth. And the evil now screws up perfection. Okay, because Adam and Eve were created in God's image perfectly. Okay, so that's critical. It's the perfection story. Okay, and so then and then the fallen angels end up having mating with they end up mating with women, and you have the Nephilim, the giants, and so God has to destroy this immense evil that is on the earth, and so he creates. And then Noah shows up on page 4 at the flood, and then everybody knows the flood story, and so then there's the flood. Now the problem with the flood with the Noah's Ark was Cush gets on the ark. Cush is carrying the evil seed still. Cush ends up coming off the ark. Nimrod was born. Nimrod ends up dying. Before that all happened, the mother Semiramis had an adulterous affair. So there's all this mess went on, and then so she ended up claiming that Nimrod came back from the dead, and they had a son by the name of Tammuz. And so that creates the start of paganism and sun worship. So that's the start of the whole story. Then you've got several hundred years later.
This is step 5. This is 5, God 17.
Page 5. This incredible prophet shows up by the name of Isaiah. And Isaiah writes Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53 describes the life of the Messiah. And so it clearly describes what's going to happen to him, the whole story. So Isaiah 53, then about 100 years later, Daniel shows up. And Daniel basically...
That's page 6.
Page 6. So Daniel, 100 years later, describes when the Messiah would die. The Messiah would die before the destruction of the second temple. And if you do the research, the second temple was destroyed in 70 AD. So that was 70 years after 0. So that's when Messiah would be.
Number 30 about God's 7-year time frame.
This.
Boy, I get lucky to hit all the commercials. Well, let's let it play now.
This is a summary. Page 30 is the countdown. This is the greatest thing that was shown to me. This was the piece that Daniel never got. This is the greatest piece of the entire cycle. It's when I was in Vienna, I go to the Kolchak, I get a ticket, 421. You know what it means? It's a 7,000-year cycle to the return of Christ that started 4,000 BC. That was creation. We had a 4,000-year cycle. That was the time of the Jews, okay? Then you had birth of Christ. That brings it to 0. Then you have 2,000 years go by. That's the time of the Gentiles. What's a Gentile? Non-Jew, okay? And so God's chosen people initially was the 4,000 years of the Jews. Then you have the 2,000 years who accepted Messiah, and there was a massive deception at 0 when the Jews rejected Christ. And again, very simply, go Isaiah 53 and the part about Daniel. Those two you cannot find anywhere in the Hebrew text. It was removed. Okay, so you have 2,000 years of the time of the Gentiles, and this is the beautiful part. Okay, we're getting close to the return of Christ, and it's a 4,000-year cycle, 4, followed by a 2,000-year cycle, 2, time of the Gentiles, into a 1,000-year cycle, 1 cycle, 4, 2, 1. This end-time cycle was written from the beginning, given to Daniel. This is a 7,000-year cycle. The last 1,000 years is the marriage, is the Christ marriage of the Jews and the Gentiles into one kingdom. The first time in history there will ever be one kingdom on this earth, because every other kingdom has failed and will always fail, and there will never be one kingdom on this earth until the return of Christ for the 1,000 years. That will be a 1,000-year Sabbath. And that's my presentation. And I truly hope that people grasp the power of what this 421 cycle is, Greg.
I had to bring that up so we can see in the blog. Well, the title was March 2020. I'm going to bring the whole thing down. In order to start a new system, you have to destroy the old system. And it will be biblical, and the world has stopped. Now, it looks like a police state or It's according to the way you look at it. If the globalists are in charge, it's a police state. But if God is moving, then we've all been set free from having a job, have to have all the fiat dollars. They're going to have to return to gold and silver. They're going to have to return to land, a year of jubilee, where we can have big, huge families and know our aunts and uncles and our parents and our grandparents, brothers and sisters, and know this huge family that we really all have. The evil people know their whole family heritage and who they are, and most of us don't. And you should know who your great-great-grandfather was and your great-great-grandmother and who their brothers and sisters were and who your aunts and uncles are and who your relatives are. It makes you feel a part of something. I was just on the Ancestry.com last year for a little while, but it makes you feel like you're a part of something, and you are. And you don't have to be a part of Q or a part of a church or to have that need met. You've got this huge family that are your real relatives, blood relatives, that you can be a part of. And that's God's plan. So there are 2 or 3 or 4 plans out there, and everybody's fighting for world control. And with God, it's inner control. It's eternal control where Jesus Christ is king and God is control. And each person is controlled internally with the laws of God and the ways of God. And his laws are written us. And it gives us the power of the Holy Spirit to be set free and to heal. Lay hands on the sick and to heal and set the captives free and set at liberty those who are free. And when those things happen, then you get what the Founding Fathers had. The Founding Fathers will always go, this is God. They would say, this is divine providence. And when they're saying divine providence, they're saying their mouth are dropped. All the stuff they were doing, they realized God was in the midst of them. God was doing all this stuff through them. They were only vessels being used by God. Now, since I got started so late here, I'm going to end this one here. And then I'm going to come back to all the different things that happened in March to make March biblical, to make March go down in history as a world-changing month. So thank you very much for being here and watching. This is PG. I'm going to sign off, take a little break, and come back to go through the history of the month of March.
I was cold all alone. No place for